Hello. It's raining here in West Texas. It's never raining, but I'm just walking to a theory class. That's what I do right now at Texas Tech. I teach oral skills and music theory. And I was working on a singing quiz for my students. So I'm going to sing not really a chord progression, but a series of chords. I guess it's kind of a chord progression. You just wouldn't see this in actual music. And this is what I've been teaching my students this week. And if you know what this chord progression or what these chords would be called, you should comment below. I feel like I should give you a prize if you know this. Okay, let's see if I can do it. Tonicized do, re, do, me, sol, do. Okay. Do, me, sol, me, do. Le, do, me, do, le. Le, do, me, fi, me, do, le. Le, do, fi, do, le. Le, do, re, fi, re, do, le. Sol, ti, re, ti, sol. Do, me, sol, me, do. So comment down below if you know that. Just before we get to the topic of today's discussion, I think it's interesting as I've been pondering the different skills that I've learned as I've been a musician and a teacher. You know, I feel lucky that I can teach oral skills and music theory. I didn't feel like I could, but you kind of trust the process and you get thrown in to do things, and all of a sudden you're teaching a class that you didn't know you'd be teaching, or you end up conducting a choir, or you end up as a church musician. And that's another part of my career right now, is that I've been directing music at a church, and you just put all these things together and you end up with a career, and it's pretty cool. So keep gaining skills, keep putting them together. You're gonna have an awesome career. So today, I want to talk about this story that I heard. My wife, she was watching renovation videos and renovations of like these French chateaus, and I just heard this from the other room, so I don't know all the details. I was just editing a video and listening to her. But the lady in one of her videos who was renovating a chateau, she was talking about the history in this community where a stained glass maker was hired to put stained glass in these churches and cathedrals and homes. And it was really beautiful, and that's why he was hired, to put in these stained glass. But what ended up happening is that the stained glass was faulty, and because he didn't use high quality materials, and so the stained glass ended up wearing out and breaking, and people ended up having to replace their stained glass in these churches long before they should have. And it's funny because the stained glass was known to be so beautiful that, you know, that's why he was hired. But what's the point of having it really, really beautiful if you just have to replace it frequently and it's faulty, right? So that's what I'm thinking about today. And I'm making sure that the same thing doesn't happen with our voices. We know that there are people who have just like a really beautiful tone, or things come really easily to them. And it's so easy to think, oh man, like, that person has such a pretty voice. They must have an amazing technique. Like, it sounds easy for them, so they must be doing everything right. But we know from seeing people, you know, they start singing and they've got a pretty voice, and a few years down the road, they start developing a wobble in their vibrato, or, you know, having these different issues. And then we have to jump in and have all these discussions about, oh, well, I mean, they must have been singing the wrong repertoire, or they must have this or that. And, you know, the main one is kind of what they've been singing repertoire that's too big. And so that's the thing that we blame it on. And we never stop to think, oh, what if they had a pretty voice, but they also had some technical issues? And then over time, compiles, you know, having some technical issues that maybe weren't easy to hear from the beginning. And then maybe add on the wrong repertoire or add on all the other 100 things that it could possibly be. And that's when you end up with a voice. But if you have a really strong, solid technique, there are people who sing lots of different types of repertoire and do it safely. And so I'm gonna go in and teach a class, but when I come back, I wanna talk about the 3 things that you can do to develop your own voice and technique to make sure that it doesn't fall apart like the stained glass does. A few years down the road, we want to make sure that your voice is staying solid and strong and healthy for years and even decades to come. So I'm kind of laughing because I feel like I'm getting old. One of my singer friends here who lives in Texas, she had to teach me how to hold the phone to do like a selfie, you know, where you put your pinky underneath it to hold and stabilize the phone. I had no idea that that's how you do selfies. But here I am, and yeah, we're going to talk about the 3 things that you can do and that you can start developing in your voice right now so that you can sing long term and to keep your voice really healthy and to avoid having problems down the road. And also, I just kind of have a surprise at the end, so stay to the end, a fun announcement. So the first of the 3 things that you'll want to do is to work on your registers. This might not be a surprise for you, especially if you've worked on this with your teachers, or if you're used to watching my videos. I talk about registration a lot. And one of the reasons why is because a lot of people don't develop the full strength of their voice because they think of mixing their registers before their registers are developed. And in a recent video, we talked about the analogy, like, can you imagine 2 12-year-old kids that are like, we've fallen in love and we want to get married? It's like, okay, well, that's not really a great idea, because you need some time on your own to figure out who you are before you just go and start mixing your life with somebody else. And the same can be said for your registers. They do need to coordinate and they do need to work together. Balance singing, whether you're in a chest voice dominant place or a head voice dominant place. The cricothyroids and the thyroarytenoids should be engaged and they should be functioning healthily. But in order for them to be able to work in a coordinated way, they need to be strong muscles on their own. And most people take a weak thyroarytenoid chest voice muscle and a weak cricothyroid head voice type muscle, and they start mixing them together. And when that happens, they don't get the full, shouty, clear, bright, projected power of the chest voice. And they also don't get like the hooty, deep, dark, falsetto pull of the head voice. And they end up with squeeze, nasal, thick, woofy type sounds that aren't traditional classical operatic sounds. And I will always say this, if that's the type of singing that you like to do and that's the sound that you want, great, go for it. There are some ramifications on the road that you need to be careful of. And that is that as the voice gets mixed, it tends to get more and more mixed over time, and people can start losing their top notes, their low notes, and they don't have the full chiaroscuro clarity that they want in their range. That's like what the tradition demands. And to be able to sing out in a balanced way over an orchestra without pushing, the full development of those muscles can be very, very helpful. And so if you are singing in a mixed way, over time, you will continue to lose kind of the shouty power of the chest voice and the hooty depth of the head voice, and your voice will get smaller. And then in order to sing over an orchestra, you'll have to push. And then that will cause even more problems. So it's kind of the snowball effect with mixing, and our singing in online, and I think even at universities and conservatories, from my experience, is full of people mix early, mix all the time. We've got to mix right from the very beginning, and we've got to get through that break as fast as possible. So you'll end up with singers who say, yeah, I can sing in my chest voice, and they do stuff like this. And you're like, technically, yeah, you're using your chest voice muscle, but are you using the full expanse and power and expression of the chest voice muscle to kind of get that clear operatic sound, or does it kind of sound thick nasal? Or they might kind of pinch it tiny and go, ooh, look, I'm singing this kind of belty mix type chest voice. And obviously I'm exaggerating just as I walk around, but I think you get the point. So that's number one, is building your registers so that you can sing in a healthy, clear, projected way that the tradition has demanded for so long, and do it for a long time and do it for decades. Okay, number two, the second thing that you can learn to do so that you can sing for a long time is to learn how to use your breath properly. Now, everyone talks about breath, and of course there's a lot of different terms and a lot of different ways to talk about it. But the most important thing is to understand how the breath connects with your throat and your throat's ability to stay open, and your ability to hold your larynx in a happy, healthy, balanced position where it can do its job without pressure, pulling, tension, squeeze, and all of these other things. So if your belly muscles are squeezing while you sing, they're tensing, they're constricting, they're pushing in, the belly muscles, we should say the kind of the exhalation muscles that squeeze air out of your body, and your glottis are concomitant. They have a concomitant relationship. And that means that when you squeeze your belly muscles, you tighten your belly muscles, you're also closing the glottis and causing pressure and tension in your throat. And a lot of singers talk about singing an open throat. They talk about using the breath, but when they demonstrate how to do this, they typically have a very pressurized sound. And this pressurized sound is called Valsalva maneuver. Now, that's not a singing term. I mean, it's become a singing term for people who sing my technique, for my students, for myself, for some of my colleagues. But it's really a physiological term that's talking about that concomitant tension of squeezing the glottis close, but trying to push air through at the same time. Now, the issue with this is a lot of singers do it. They might not even know that that's what they're doing. They think that they're singing on the breath because they feel a lot of breath power. They feel a lot of breath pressure. They feel breath coming through their mouth, or these different things. But those sensations can be very confusing. And they do it because sometimes it can help you to sing a higher note. If you squeeze that throat closed and squeak out a high note, oh my gosh, it's amazing. And, it's become more and more popular for singers to have to sing higher and higher. The tuning of the orchestra goes up over time. And now it's not enough for a coloratura soprano to have a high E. You have to have a high A above a high E. So you can sing Olympia and squeak out that high A. Whereas a lot of singers in the past, in Verdi's time, if you didn't have the D flat for Lady Macbeth, it was like, fine, whatever. You can leave it out. I don't care. Verdi didn't care. Or composers would even transpose the pieces for the singers so that they could get the singer that they wanted with the dramatic intent that they wanted, but not who doesn't have all of the high notes. But so it's so tempting to just use that breath pressure to push out higher notes. But we end up with this Valsalva pressure, and those closing muscles around the glottis get stronger and stronger and stronger. I'm starting to fog up. And then we have to squeeze our belly muscles more and more and more to press more and more air through. And so the voice gets more and more tense over time. And so what starts out as a pretty sound could end up being an extremely tense and problematic sound over time as the muscles build up. And I talk to my students who have built up a lot of that pressure, and let me tell you about the pressure I built up in my voice before I learned how to do this proper breathing. They have to spend time not only to build up the strength to open up the throat, but it takes time for the tension and the strength that they built up in the closing muscles to chill out for a while. You have to let the opening muscles become stronger and consistently stronger than the closing muscles, and that takes a lot of time. But it has such benefits for the long-term health and longevity of being able to sing in a clear, projected way over an orchestra for decades to come. And that's why that is my tip number 2. Now, we're going to talk about my third tip for singing healthily and keeping that beautiful sound for years and decades. And that is to build the correct vibrato action from the beginning of your vocal training. And my first video about vibrato has been the most popular video that I've made. I think it has about 19,000 views right now or something. And, in some ways it's controversial because the main way that people talk about vibrato is to talk about it like, oh, if you're just singing healthy and you're singing on your breath, your vibrato will just happen. And, there is a nugget of truth in that. The better you get your breath going, the better your balance is. When your tongue and your jaw and your throat and everything is coordinated and efficient and easeful, then yes, your vibrato has a fighting chance to do what it needs to do. However, the muscles that create vibrato are kind of like our blinking muscles. We can blink without thinking about it, but we can also control our blinking, and that's something that we need to consider when we're building our vibrato muscles. That is because the vast majority of people have glitches in their vibrato. They have tension in their breathing, they're squeezing in their belly muscles, they're doing all these different things. And the longer you sing with a glitch in your vibrato, the worse the vibrato action gets. And that is why we have this thing that we've coined old lady vibrato. We think that if you get older, that you're going to have vibrato issues, and that older people who sing have worse vibratos, and that they're just inherently going to have a wobble in their vibrato. But that's just completely untrue. The fact of the matter is that if you sing for a long time with tension in the vibrato or a glitch in the vibrato or not doing the proper vibrato action, then you're going to get more and more tense, and you'll end up with a wider and wider vibrato problem. And again, this comes back to that curse of the pretty voice, because a lot of the times we don't know what these little glitches sound like in a vibrato. The glitches, we've kind of just accepted them as being part of what we hear when we go to the opera. We hear people with really beautiful sounds, and we might not recognize the little glitches in the voice, but then 10 years down the road, when the glitches have gotten stronger, we say, oh, now we can hear that there's a wobble. It happens in Broadway singers, it happens with rock singers, but I think it's most prevalent in operatic singers. And so learning how to create this proper release of the vibrato and being very skilled at using your breath to release the vibrato, to accent the vibrato, to keep it wide but not make it sound wide. That's one of the things we talked about in the video where we slowed down Birgit Nilsson's vibrato. You got to check it out. We want the vibrato to be wide. We want it to be accented properly and to be strong. And that takes training for 99% of people. 99% of the people that I've worked with need extensive training. Some people are able to do it with less training. And that's okay. But most of us have glitches in the vibrato. We need to train that action. And if we don't, then we're going to end up with vibrato that weakens over time. We'll end up with old lady wobble vibrato or whatever it is. And these are three things we just don't want to happen. We don't want the registers to get mixed and fall apart. And we don't want the breath and the valsalva to get tighter over time. And we don't want the vibrato to start falling apart. We want to keep these things fresh, healthy, strong, trained. It's not luck. It doesn't just happen just because you've got a pretty voice. You got to train these things, and you got to have a really strong ear to know what it sounds like when someone sings this way. And you've got to develop the muscles to do it, and also do it in an easeful, coordinated, efficient way. No pushing. And so yeah, those are the three things that we can do. And I'm going to go in and teach a couple of lessons, and then later I'll come back and I'll share. I gotta warm up my hand and unfog my glasses. I'll come back and share the fun surprise with y'all. Hey, I'm back. I just had some lessons, and I also did a yoga session with Maria Krasnikova. She is an opera singer from Europe. I mean, I feel like she's all over, but I think she's currently based in France. She's one of my voice students, and she puts on a concert series in the summer. I mean, she'll do some insane amount of concerts. She's singing all over, doing a bunch of stuff, but she's a yoga instructor. And so she's been doing some virtual yoga classes with me, and it's been so fun. Anyway, look her up. She's awesome. And so yeah, I promised you a little surprise. Life update is that I auditioned for and entered a local, well, West Texas talent show. And, there's a fun prize for it. And it's for a really great cause. It's for Make-A-Wish in Texas. And so really excited about supporting that. But the fun thing is that this talent show, I did not enter as a singer. And I've always loved singing. I've always loved performing and acting. But my performing career actually started when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. And I grew up in this small town in southeast Idaho. And there was a performing group in my town that competed and performed jump roping. And they were world champions. They came from this small town in Idaho. And I remember watching them growing up. I ended up joining this jump rope team when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And I traveled around the country, traveled around the world, and I did acrobatics, and I performed for the first inauguration of George W. Bush when I was 11. I performed for professional sporting events. Companies would hire us, we'd go on tours, and I went and started jump rope teams. I lived in Brazil. And I just got to do a lot of awesome, fun things, performing and competing at a national and international level. Anyway, so I had my last competitive jump rope season, I think was 2007. I went to Worlds in 2006 in Toronto, Canada. And then I went to Nationals in 2007. And that was my last full competitive season. And so it hasn't quite been 20 years, but it's been a lot of years. And I have gone through, obviously, a lot of changes. And, fitness has always been important to me. But I, have also had some injuries throughout the years. It's shoulder surgery, some back problems, and some different things. But I have been wanting to kind of experiment doing some more jump roping again. And so I did some physical therapy last fall, and to do some work on my shoulder, my back, some different things. And I've been feeling so much better, so I auditioned for this talent show as a jump roper, and I got in, and I'm performing next Saturday. It's the 8th. If you're in West Texas and you'd like to come, I'll put a link as well, and you can come and vote for me, and it'll be a fun event. But if you can't be here, I've been practicing really hard for the last couple weeks. Like getting shin splints and stuff. I gotta actually rest today a little bit. But I'm gonna put a little clip on here as well, so you can see old man trying to pretend like he's a teenager jump roping again. And I'll just put a little clip. There's some other super awesome things that I'm gonna be doing that are not filmed, and they're surprises just for the live audience. But yeah, just a little snippet. So hope you enjoy. And yes, here's to living your dreams as a jump roper, even as an old man. Have a great day. And remember, go out and take the stage, because the world really does need your voice exactly as it is right now. See ya.